Hi, it's Matt Bisogno here, and in today's video I thought I'd show you how to put all of the components of the Geegeez Racecards together. And in order to demonstrate this, I've chosen one of the most impenetrable races of the season so far, the Victoria Cup at Ascot. Just the 27 runners in fact there may even be 29 runners. Yeah, just the 29 runners down the straight 7 furlong track at Ascot. So obviously it's an easy race to pick the winner in. As you can see, they bet 12 to 1 the field, as if to highlight the simplicity of nailing this rather easy handicap. Nevertheless, I will not be deterred, and I'm going to exemplify various aspects of the Geegeez Racecards to show you how that in quite a short space of time you can take a seemingly impossible race like this and come up with a fairly credible shortlist. So as you'll see across the top, there are various tabs. This is in the gold membership. If you've got a free membership, you won't see some of these tabs, and also you won't see some of these buttons against each horse. You can trial the gold membership if you haven't done so already. You'll get 10 days free, and then if you like or see the value in what there is there, you can continue your subscription for £24 a month, which is extremely competitive when compared with similar but generally inferior products elsewhere on the market. Anyway, I didn't want this to be a pitch. I just wanted to demonstrate the the various aspects. So the place I'm going to start is the Race Analysis tab, and this is a rather wonderful profiling tool. As you can see, it looks quite convoluted, but it's actually pretty straightforward unless you're colorblind. If you're a beginner, you might just want to look at the color in the grid. Green is good, amber is okay, and red is not so good. As you can see across the top, we've got column headings for going, class, course, distance, field size, and official rating. For the first 5 sets of columns, we've got runs, wins, and win percentage. So we can see for Captain Ramius, he's run 8 times on good to soft, won twice, and that gives him a win percentage of 25%. If you wanted to change the view to place, which I'm going to do in this case because I want to get a more comprehensive feel for the profile. Lots of these horses run habitually in these large field handicaps, so it gives us a better view on their respective performances by looking at the place angle. Just click the place radio button and you'll get the detail now for the place. It still says W for win, but in actual fact it's place data now. So as you can see, Captain Ramius has now gone red because the criteria for a green colouring is slightly higher for place percentages than it is for win percentages, as you might expect. Okay, so the first 5 columns are like that. The last column, official rating, has got T, L and D, and this stands for today's rating. Captain Ramius is rated 104 today. The L is for last winning rating, so Captain Ramius last won off an official rating of 109, and D is the difference between the pairs, in this case 5. If we look at Bertie Whittle, we can see his difference is minus 19, and this means that he's now £19 higher in the handicap than he was the last time he won. Now that doesn't necessarily mean he can't win, because he's been running extremely creditably, easy for me to say, in the interim since his last win, but he's obviously not well handicapped, let's say that. So this is the race analysis report. What I tend to do is sort by various percentages generally, and in this case I can see that Gabriel's Lad has a question mark against the going, but otherwise looks pretty solid. Heaven's Guest here looks really quite interesting. We can see he's placed every one of the 4 times he's run on good to soft. He's placed in 5 of his 8 races in today's class, which is class 2, as you can see at the top of your screen now. He's placed once from 2 at the course. He's also placed twice out of 3 runs at the 7 furlong distance, and he's got no problem racing in big fields. He's been in the frame in 4 of 6 16 plus runner races. We can also see he's within £3 of his last winning rating. So although although he's number 3 in the field and therefore quite high in the weights, in ratings terms he's got a definite chance. We can also see Bertie Whittle, despite his big differential between his last winning rating and today's rating, we can see that he has actually quite a compelling profile for the race, as do Glenn Moss and Don't Call Me, whose course and distance form looks very promising. So this is where I start. I make a note of various horses on here that look of interest. The next port of call for me in big field races particularly, and in short distance, less than a mile big field races especially, and absolutely always in short distance big field straight track races. The Victoria Cup is run straight down the Ascot piste. Pace is pivotal. So selecting the pace analysis tab, what I want to do first is I'm going to sort by pace score, and that is going to give me a view of the overall pace in the race. In other words, are there lots of speedsters, or is there likely to be a muddling pace, or something in between? You will have probably seen it in a previous video, but these 4 columns here, LR through to 4LR, represent last run through to 4th last run, and a horse can be rated between 1 and 4 depending on how it ran. 1, if we look at Sound Advice's 1 here, it says it's held up in rear, so 1 is for a hold up effort, or a horse where he's been raced from the back of the field. 4, by contrast, is a horse that led or pressed the leader, and we can see in this case 4, he broke well, led, and was soon 4 lengths clear. 2 and 3 are varying degrees in between, so 2 is usually midfield, dwelt and soon bustled along in midfield, and 3 is a prominent racer, so chased leaders. So each horse with 4 completed starts in the UK can have a score between 4 if they were held up each time, as in the case of Spiritual Star, and 16. Now there aren't any 16s in this race, but Televoy, we can see, is the closest with a score of 15. Televoy looks quite likely to lead, or at least to be front rank. Just looking at the top end of the pace scores, then we can see that there are only 2 horses with a score above 13, and in such a big field that's actually quite rare. You normally see more early speed spread more widely in the field, so we wouldn't necessarily expect this to be an absolute balls out gallop from the start to finish, which means potentially you wouldn't want your horse to be starting from too far back. So these hold up types down here, they might find themselves with an awful lot to do against horses which haven't gone that quickly up front, and therefore have got something left to kick on in the final furlong. Now don't worry too much if that doesn't make sense. This whole concept of pace is new concept to a lot of people, and this kind of a race is probably a reasonable one to articulate the principles. But again, we're looking at indicators here. We're not looking at anything absolute or categorical. We're just trying to get a feel for the pace shape in the race. So we think it will be quick, but not lightning quick. I personally would be apprehensive about hold-up horses, and I'm sure one will win now I've said that. But the percentage play here is probably to look for something with a score of, well, let's say 10 or more, to be racing prominently enough to take advantage of the less than 100% gallop from end to end. So if that makes at least some degree of sense, the next thing I want to do is I want to look at the relative pace in the race. And what I do here is, as you can see, I've sorted by draw now. And what that enables me to do is to see where in the draw the pockets of pace are. So if I look at the draws 1 to 8, let's say, I can see that there's not that much pace there. Now if I look around 9 and 10, there's a bit of pace there. If I scroll down a bit further, 13 Brownsea Brink has got a bit of pace. Burn the Boats is interesting. It's an Irish horse, and it hasn't got 4 UK starts. Unfortunately, our pace data only covers UK runs currently. That's something we're working on. So this 6, if we look that he chased leaders there and he chased leaders there, it might be reasonable to assume that if you replicate that across the 4 runs, you get a score of 12. So we're starting to see a bit of pace around stalls, kind of 8 to 13. So that's quite an interesting area of the draw. Higher up, we can see that stalls 18 and upwards, we've got Don't Bother Me, Heaven's Guest, to a lesser degree Boots and Spurs. We've got the Trailblazing Televoy, and against the rail, which is the near side rail, the stand side rail, we've got 2 who generally like to get on with it. Sound Advice didn't last time, but generally does, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he bounced out here. So I'm thinking that the field is going to come either down the middle or to the near side, and therefore if you're drawn low, I suspect that's probably going to be quite a big handicap. So for the likes of Bertie Whittle, who we mentioned, and Captain Ramius, and especially Loving Spirit, which is the favourite and a hold-up horse, he's going to do very well to win from stall 7 with his running style. Now, because they've run that way in the past doesn't mean they have to run that way in the race here. So he might very well fly out of the stalls and get across. But the percentage play is that won't happen, and he's going to need an awful lot to go right for him in order to justify favouritism. As he is at the moment, he may very well not be tomorrow. So all of that means that I suspect that the pace in the race will be middle to high, and I'm looking for a horse that is a prominent runner drawn middle to high, and to that end the likes of Brownsea Brink, Don't Bother Me, Heaven's Guest, and right up high, maybe even Glen Moss. These are horses that would be of interest to me so far. So that's the pace and the profile. The one that scores highly on both scores is where is he? Heaven's Guest. Heaven's Guest has looks to have a pretty robust profile. Now the next thing I want to look at is the full form filter. So I'm interested in Heaven's Guest now. His profile for the race, in actual fact what I should have shown you is if I only look at win, we can see that Heaven's Guest actually has green all the way across from a win perspective, and as you can see that's a striking row of green in a sea of red and amber largely. So Heaven's Guest, despite his weight burden, looks well enough drawn and very well suited to the race conditions. So let's look at the full form filter. Now on this tab you can take any horse's overall form and order it or filter it by the specific components of that form that you're interested in. So let's have a look at Heaven's Guest. Here he is. Oh, by the way, you can also use this for jockey and trainer form, which is quite a useful tool. In this case, we're going to look at Heaven's Guest, and I'm interested in how he's run on the going before. And I now have Heaven's Guest's 4 runs on good to soft, and we can see that that he's won 3 of them, and in the one that he didn't win he was 4th of 26, and that, I think that looks like it was the Ayr Gold Cup, £96,000 handicap. That would have been the Ayr Gold Cup. So those are both off a rating of 100, and here he's got 103. So he despite the weight, he's definitely got a strong looking profile on in terms of the going. If we look at his runs over 7 furlongs, the distance, we can see he's run 3 times. He's won 2 of them and finished down the field in a Goodwood handicap. Now it's possible that he didn't act on the track. He may have just run a bad race that day. Those of course can happen, but overall he's won 2 out of 3 at this trip, including 1 at Ascot here. So if we look at his course form again, he ran in a Group 2. That looks like it was the Champions Day Group 2 sprint, worth 208,000 to the winner. He was beaten 7 lengths there, but no disgrace in that. That was on softer ground as well. That's a pretty solid run. Again, his other run at the track was a win in a £93,000 race at the end of last season, and that obviously reads well in the context of today's race. Now, one other thing you can do if you have all of the race form, if you click today, you can see in the little fawn box there that will show you the form under today's distance, going and class as a composite. So we can see that Heaven's Guest has run over 7 furlongs, today's distance, in today's class 2 and on good to soft twice in his career, and he's won both times, which is kind of interesting, I'd say. So I am undeterred in my affection for Heaven's Guest in the context of this race. So far we've looked at the race analysis to profile the horses. We've looked at the pace analysis to see where the way the race might be run and which areas of the draw might benefit from the way it's run. And we've looked in detail at one specific horse who scored who matched up well against the first 2 criteria in the full form filter. Now the last thing I want to do is I want to go back to basics, and I want to go actually back to the race card itself. And on the race card we've got various icons here. We've got the last 6 runs, we've got the jockey form, we've got trainer form, we've got a head-to-head record, we've got a Racing Post spotlight comment, and we've got breeding information. Now unfortunately I'm recording this video on Friday evening, and the head-to-head and Racing Post comment information are populated just after midnight on Friday evening, ready for Saturday morning. So if you're looking, by the time you've watched this video, that information will be populated in the race card, so you can have a look at that. At the time of recording it's not. Now this is another thing that we're addressing, and we are going to change our system such that as soon as we receive the information, we run our programs to populate it, and I'm hopeful that this information will be available the night before, along with lots of other stuff that currently users have to wait until the day of racing. I'm hopeful that we'll have that in situ within the next fortnight, so certainly by the end of May, but hopefully a little bit before that. In any case, the key thing that I'm interested in here is trainer form, and I can see that in the last fortnight, Richard Fahey, who is the trainer of Heaven's Guest, has had 14 winners from 85 runners. Now that's on such a big number of runners, that's a pretty respectable win strike rate, and compared with his 30-day form is extremely consistent. You can see he's basically 16.5% win rate there and 16.5% win rate there. Looking at the place percentages, they too are very consistent, and for a trainer who throws so much mud at the wall, plenty of it sticking, these are pretty good numbers. The one thing that I would generally look at when I'm looking at a race like this is the head-to-head form. I'd like to know how Heaven's Guest has got on previously against today's rivals. Now there are obviously weight differentials and changes, and they are material to some degree, but to my eye I'm more interested in whether a horse has generally beaten the rivals he's racing against on this occasion. A quick tip for you, to look at the head-to-head detail for all of the runners, click the head-to-head icon in the top bar, and as you can see there's no data available yet. As I say, it populates overnight, but that opens up the data area for every runner, and you can literally scroll down and when they're populated, I'll just quickly show you a populated race from today, hopefully with some data, possibly not. You can see that there's plenty of information there if you want to spend more time on it, but the key is that you can scroll down very quickly and you can see that Ventura Mist has generally beaten today's opposition. Viva Verglas has a good record. See the Sun, who was favourite, had lost to the only two of today's rivals that he raced against, and he was out of the frame today. Blythe Spirit had a 1-on-1 record against a single rival, so we can get a feel in this race for the horses that are likely to get not intimidated but maybe outclassed by today's opposition, and that's particularly useful in big field races, highly competitive big field races like the Victoria Cup. So all of that leads me to summarise that, having looked at the race analysis and seen that Heaven's Guest had an extremely robust profile for the race, whichever way you wanted to, whichever factor you wanted to major on, and then looked at the pace setup of the race, both in terms of the overall amount of pace in the race, and therefore what kind of a runner would be suited, and the specific draw location of that pace. I would be, this Loving Spirit will probably win now I've said this, but if I'm right about my pace analysis, he's got a lot to do from stall 7 with his hold up style, and it may very well be that he runs on into 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th and looks like an unlucky horse. But the key here is that we can predict those horses that are unlucky. By the way, if he does finish 3rd, 4th or 5th and you're betting with an each way 5 places bookie, you'll still be happy enough to get paid out at 3-1 on the place part. So I'm not saying he's got no chance, I'm just saying that in terms of the stall positioning and his running style in the context of today's race, he might have a lot to do. Conversely, Heaven's Guest has a prominent running style and looks to be drawn around some pace in the high numbers, which are near side at Ascot. and that's further grist to the mill of his chance. I've actually already backed Heaven's Guest, and nobody has a right to find the winner in a race such as this, and I'm worried about the fact that he has to carry 9 stone 9 despite George Challoner taking £3 off, which brings him down to 9 stone 6. It's still quite a lot of weight, and historically more than the winner has usually carried, but he's got plenty in his favour, as you've seen, and he's the one for me here. So this has been a video aimed at showing you how to pull all the various aspects of the race cards together in a fiercely competitive massive field handicap. May it please your deity that Heaven's Guest finishes at least in the first 10, and hopefully a good bit nearer the front than that. Otherwise it might not look like such a clever video. I hope you've found some benefit from it. I appreciate I've waffled on for 25 minutes now. If I was doing this data analysis on my own, it would take me around 5 minutes, and when you think about the fact that we're looking at 30 runners in one of the biggest field handicaps of the season so far, to spend 5, maybe 7 minutes going through this, and coming up with a credible, logical selection, I hope you can see the value in that when compared with other service providers, let's say, who are stuck in the past and refuse to innovate. And the key with the Geegeez Racecards is that I and my developers are determined to innovate and to continue to innovate. We've got a whole raft of changes coming in towards the end of May, which are exciting, and I won't spoil the surprise now, but existing gold subscribers will be joyful, I think, about at least some of them, and it should offer a good reason for other people to at least try out the service. Anyway, this has been a Victoria Cup preview, form preview, and also a pulling it all together analysis of how to put all the various elements of the race cards together. Finally, the odds tab, as the name suggests, shows you the best odds, and as we can see, Heaven's Guest is 20 to 1 with Bet Victor, and also with William Hill. Bet Victor are paying 5 places, so my bet is struck with them. Other bookmakers are available. Okay, Matt Bisogno saying thank you very much for watching. Have a great weekend's betting, or if you're watching this another time, have a great day's betting, and bye for now.